Greetings, Spooky fans! Michael here, and I finally got around to reading every single Pokedex entry in Pokemon Sword and Shield. Yes, all of them. My efficiency was aided once I acquired the sacred texts. As I did that, I compiled a list of all the Pokedex entries that I thought were the most interesting, because they were surprising, or funny, or disturbing, or taught us a really cool new fact about a certain Pokemon. I will now present that list to you, along with commentary that is sure to enrich the mind and enliven the soul. Or do neither of those things. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my channel because I'm almost to 1 million subs. Okay, we can start now. Thwacky's Shield entry says when it's drumming out rapid beats in battle, it gets so caught up in the rhythm that it won't even notice that it's already knocked out its opponent. This is hilarious to me because while Thwacky could just be banging its drumsticks on nearby rocks or something like that and ignoring the unconscious Pokemon over there, I kind of like to think that it's doing that drumming on the enemy Pokemon, so it's just beating the crap out of it while it's already unconscious, and it's beating a dead horsey if this is done after the expansion passes come out. Sobble's Sword entry says when scared, this Pokemon cries. Its tears pack the chemical punch of 100 onions, and attackers won't be able to resist weeping. I'm no scientist here, but 100 onions? Like, one is enough to make you bawl. 100 might just make you go blind. Blipbug's Sword entry says, a constant collector of information, this Pokemon is very smart. Very strong is what it isn't. I'm including this because I think the completely unnecessary shade thrown on Blipbug is quite funny. Grubbin's Sword entry says its natural enemies, like Rookidee, may flee rather than risk getting caught in its large mandibles that can snap thick tree branches. I thought this was interesting because we now know that Rookidee and Grubbin are enemies. So that's cool. Corvisquire's Sword entry says, smart enough to use tools in battle, these Pokemon have been seen picking up rocks and flinging them or using ropes to wrap up enemies. I like this Dex entry because I think that's a really cool thing for Corvisquire to do. I feel like most Pokemon that use tools in battle are ones that have the tools just as part of their designs, like Farfetch'd, for example. But Corvisquire will throw rocks that it finds or pick up ropes and tie them up, like, that's just fun. Weavile's Shield entry says, with a lithe body and sharp claws, it goes around stealing food and eggs. Boltund is its natural enemy. This is another Dex entry I like because I love the ones that reveal a connection between two different species of Pokemon. So we know that Weavile and Boltund hate each other. Isn't that fun? Next is Dubwool, and I think both of its Dex entries are interesting. Its Sword entry says, weave a carpet from its springy wool, and you end up with something closer to a trampoline. You'll start to bounce the moment you set foot on it. This makes no physical sense, I don't think, because in order for something to bounce, it has to flex downward and then flex back up, and if it's just on flat ground, I don't know how it would flex down far enough to bounce you, but even so, the idea is hilarious. And its Shield entry says, its majestic horns are meant only to impress the opposite gender. They never see use in battle. That's another interesting fact. It's got these big, gnarly looking horns that it could definitely impale somebody with, but it just doesn't. Purloin's Sword entry says, it steals things from people just to amuse itself with their frustration. A rivalry exists between this Pokemon and Nickit. So the fully grown fox hates dogs, but the baby fox hates cats. Budew's Sword entry says, the pollen it releases contains poison. If this Pokemon is raised on clean water, the poison's toxicity is increased. I think that's fascinating. I would have expected that the worse the water, the more potent the poison, but I guess the healthier the plant is, the more it can fight enemies. Alolan Ninetails' Sword entry says, a deity resides in the snowy mountains where this Pokemon lives. In ancient times, it was worshipped as that deity's incarnation. This one is fascinating to me because it doesn't just say, rumors say that there's a deity in the mountains. It just flat out says, there's a deity there where Alolan Ninetails is, which is like, okay, confirmation of some kind of spirit. That's cool, I guess. Vanillish's shield entry says, it blasts enemies with cold air reaching negative 148 degrees Fahrenheit, freezing them solid. But it spares their lives afterward. It's a kind Pokemon. This one, it caught me off guard. It's like, yeah, okay, vicious fighting cold air stuff. Oh, it spares their lives. It's kind. Wow. Good for it. Snowrun's shield entry says it can only survive in cold areas. It bounces happily around, even in environments as cold as negative 150 degrees Fahrenheit. I think this entry is interesting because the coldest temperature ever recorded on Earth at ground level is around negative 130 degrees Fahrenheit. So that means there are environments in the Pokemon world that are colder than the coldest temperature ever on Earth that we recorded. The Ice Age could have been colder, but we weren't recording it. So I just think that's interesting and surprising. Well, I guess not that surprising. If you've got tons of ice Pokemon that can just blast temperatures colder than that all the time, you're gonna end up with really cold areas. Next is Dwebble, and I think both of its dex entries are interesting. When it finds a stone appealing, it creates a hole inside it and uses it as its home. This Pokemon is the natural enemy of Roggenrola and Roly-Coly. This is funny to me because it makes sense. You know, Roly-Coly and Roggenrola are rocks. It makes sense that they wouldn't like the Pokemon who might see them and be like, ooh, a fresh new home. And its shield entry says it first tries to find a rock to live in, but if there are no suitable rocks to be found, Dwebble may move into the ports of a Hippowdon. I love this. I think it's adorable that a Hippowdon can be wandering around and it just has cute little Dwebbles living in the ports on the side of it. That's just fun. Crustal's shield entry says its thick claws are its greatest weapons. They're mighty enough to crack Rhyperior's carapace. This is shocking to me. Like, Rhyperior is an armored thing, and apparently just these claws from a bug Pokemon are enough to crack it. Like, holy crap. Golet's shield entry says this Pokemon was created from clay. It received orders from its master many thousands of years ago, and it still follows those orders to this day. This I think is interesting because I don't know how practical it is. How could a Golett still be trying to carry out orders that were given 1,000 years ago? Like, that's just wild. Next is Golurk, another one where I think both of the dex entries are interesting. Its sword entry says artillery platforms built into the walls of ancient castles served as perches from which Golurk could fire energy beams. That is so freaking cool. Instead of lame catapults on your castle walls, you would just build platforms for a Golurk to stand on and blast laser beams at the enemy. That's freaking sick. And its shield entry says there's a theory that inside Golurk is a perpetual motion machine that produces limitless energy, but this belief hasn't been proven. I love the nod to a physics concept here. If you didn't know, a perpetual motion machine is something that can never exist because the idea is that it creates energy from nothing, which is impossible. So the idea that a Golurk could possibly be creating energy from nothing, that's just cool. Musharna's sword entry says, when dark mists emanate from its body, don't get too near. If you do, your nightmares will become reality. This doesn't just say that you'll be stricken with terrible nightmares. It says your nightmares will become real, like as illusions or hallucinations, or is this Musharna just going to create horrifying things out of nothing? Like, that is disturbing and just weird. Snover's shield entry says the berries that grow around its belly are like ice pops. Galarian Darumaka absolutely love these berries. I think that's adorable. Snover grows ice pop berries on its body and Galarian Darumaka is like, oh, this is tasty, let me have some. And that actually leads into the next entry. Abomasnow's sword entry says if it sees any packs of Darumaka going after Snover, it chases them off, swinging its sizable arms like hammers. So apparently, Galarian Darumaka taking those berries is not something that Snover or its parent Abomasnow is okay with, so Abomasnow has to chase those little hooligans off. Pangoro's sword entry says this Pokemon is quick to anger and it has no problem using its prodigious strength to get its way. It lives for duels against Obstagoon. This is another cool Pokemon species rivalry here, and it makes a lot of sense. Two big buff dark types not liking each other, that's pretty cool. Clink's shield entry says it's suspected that Clink were the inspiration behind ancient people's invention of the first gears. This is fascinating to me because it directly conflicts with some information about Clink that we got in a previous game. Back in Black and White, Professor Juniper says that Clink was first spotted 100 years ago in the Chargestone Cave. But if Clink only showed up 100 years ago, how could ancient people have been inspired to make gears from Clink? What came first, the gear or the Clink? The Pokemon research community appears not to know. Bronzor's shield entry says, polishing Bronzor to a shine makes its surface reflect the truth, according to common lore. Be that as it may, Bronzor hates being polished. This is interesting to me because clearly Bronzor has some kind of instinct to not show people the truth. Maybe some bad things came about it in the past when people see the truth and that resulted in terrible things, so Bronzor is like, no, you can't polish me, you can't know the truth or whatever that is, because it could have terrible consequences. Dusknoir's shield entry says, with the mouth on its belly, Dusknoir swallows its target whole. The soul is the only thing eaten. Dusknoir disgorges the body before departing. Oh, God, that is messed up. It just swallows the whole thing, eats its soul, and then just spits out this soulless body that just leaves there. Like, my God, ghost Pokemon are messed up. Trubbish's shield entry says, this Pokemon was born from a bag stuffed with trash. Galarian Weezing relished the fumes belched by Trubbish. This is another fun Pokemon relationship dex entry. Seems Galarian Weezing likes hanging around Trubbish because it thinks its belches are tasty. Barraskewda's sword entry says, this Pokemon has a jaw that's as sharp as a spear and strong as steel. Apparently Barraskewda's flesh is surprisingly tasty too. Add Barraskewda to the list of Pokemon that I would probably eat. Cantonian Meowth's shield dex entry says, it washes its face regularly to keep the coin on its forehead spotless. It doesn't get along with Galarian Meowth. This is interesting to me because I just kind of assumed that regional variants of different kinds would get along because they're still the same species, but apparently Cantonian Meowth and Galarian Meowth don't like each other. Galarian Meowth's sword entry says, living with a savage seafaring people has toughened this Pokemon's body so much that parts of it have turned to iron. This is interesting for me because I hadn't heard about how Galarian Meowth came to be, and apparently it's because it lived with Vikings. Okay. Persian's shield entry says, its elegant and refined behavior clashes with that of the barbaric Berserker. The relationship between the two is one of mutual disdain. So Cantonian Meowth and Galarian Meowth's dislike of each other continues into their evolved form. Sylveon's shield entry says, there's a Galarian fairy tale that describes a beautiful Sylveon vanquishing a dreadful dragon Pokemon. I freaking love that. Instead of a knight defeating some evil dragon, they have the adorable fairy Pokemon defeat the dragon, which is of course appropriate. Appleton's shield entry says, its body is covered in sweet nectar, and the skin on its back is especially yummy. Children used to have it as a snack. Dear God, I hope that doesn't hurt. Just imagine this Appleton walking around and children just ripping pieces of your back off of you to eat. Like, my God, like I said, I hope that doesn't hurt and that it grows back because otherwise, poor Appleton. Meowstic's sword entry says, revealing the eye-like patterns on the inside of its eyes will unleash its psychic powers. It normally keeps the patterns hidden, however. Okay, so this is not new information. It actually mentions this in previous generation Meowstic Pokedex entries, but I wanted to include it because I had no idea, because I almost never see Meowstic anywhere. And have you seen the eye patterns? Like when it shows them? Let me just show you what that looks like. You see this? You see this crazy, disturbing eye stuff? Like, oh my God, these Pokemon are freaking terrifying. Aromatisse's sword entry says, the scent that constantly emits from its fur is so powerful that this Pokemon's companions will eventually lose their sense of smell. So pro tip, don't spend that much time around an Aromatisse because then you'll just never be able to smell anything again, which is, my gosh. Next up is Sirfetch'd, and I want to talk about both of its dex entries. Its sword entry says, only Farfetch'd that have survived many battles can attain this evolution. When this Pokemon's leek withers, it will retire from combat. So this is not new information. They mentioned that when Sirfetch'd was first revealed many months ago. However, I wanted to mention it because it sets up its shield dex entry. After deflecting attacks with its hard leaf shield, it strikes back with its sharp leek stalk. The leek stalk is both weapon and food. Wait, hold on. You're telling me that it values this leek so much that if it withers, it will just retire from combat, but at the same time, it also eats it? Why would you eat the thing that you're worried about withering? I feel like that would speed up the withering process. This doesn't make any sense. Toxicroak's shield entry says, it booms out a victory croak when its prey goes down in defeat. This Pokemon and Seismitoad are related species. I love that they mentioned this. It's a cool confirmation of Darwinian evolution occurring in the Pokemon world. Seismitoad and Toxicroak had a common ancestor and are closely related species, and this dex entry, like, totally confirms that, which is awesome. Golisopod's shield entry says they live in sunken ships or in holes in the seabed. When Golisopod and Grappaloct battle, the loser becomes the winner's meal. That is metal as hell. Golisopod and Grappaloct fighting to the death in a sunken ship, and the loser gets eaten by the winner? Like, holy crap. That is terrifying and also really cool. Grimmsnarl's sword entry says, with the hair wrapped around its body helping to enhance its muscles, this Pokemon can overwhelm even Machamp. And I don't think it's talking about just like the fairy over fighting type advantage. I think it's meaning to say that the hair on Grimmsnarl's body makes it so physically strong that it's stronger than Machamp, which is wild. Maybe Machamp would be able to overwhelm Grimmsnarl if it didn't shave its entire body. Hatchrim's sword entry says, no matter who you are, if you bring strong emotions near this Pokemon, it will silence you violently. I'm gonna go ahead and just say it's probably not safe to have a Hatchrim around because whether you're really sad or really happy, this thing's gonna punch you in the face. Bisharp's shield entry says, violent conflicts erupt between Bisharp and Fracture over places where sharpening stones can be found. This is fascinating to me because both Bisharp and Fracture have dex entries that talk about how they sharpen parts of their bodies on sharpening stones. So it makes perfect sense that they would fight over areas with really good sharpening stones. I love that they're kind of looking back at past facts about Pokemon and then connecting them with new facts. Like, that's awesome. Sock's shield entry says, the karate chops of a sock that's trained itself to the limit can cleave the ocean itself. Wait. You can cut the ocean? What does that even mean? It's a liquid. You can't cut a liquid. Your hand would slice through it, and yeah, it might create an air bubble, but then the water just comes back together. Like, what are you talking about, Sock? This entry was written by a Sock. Galarian Weezing's shield entry says, long ago during a time when droves of factories fouled the air with pollution, Weezing changed into this form for some reason. I love this background lore because it makes so much sense. Galarian Weezing eats poisonous gases and then spews out non-poisonous gases. It purifies the air. I think it's so cool that humans had mucked up the air of Galar so terribly that a poison-type Pokemon evolved to help save the environment by purifying the air and ending up taking on the appearance of a factory in the process. Like, That is fascinating and super creative, and I like Galarian Weezing all the more because of this dex entry. Excelgor's sword entry says it moves with blinding speed and lobs poison at foes. Featuring Excelgor as a main character is a surefire way to make a movie or comic popular. I love that this dex entry just acknowledges that Excelgor looks like a superhero. That's fun. LGM's sword entry says, if this Pokemon stands near a TV, strange scenery will appear on the screen. That scenery is said to be from its home. That is wild to me. Like, why are people not studying this more? You just put LGM next to a TV and you get a live feed of an alien planet that sustains life? That's insane. Beheeyem's sword entry says, whenever a Beheeyem visits a farm, a Dubwool mysteriously disappears. That is freaking hilarious. Beheeyem just abducts sheep. That's so funny. Braviary's shield entry says, because this Pokemon is hot-headed and belligerent, it's Corviknight that's taken the role of transportation in Galar. I think that's a fun fact. They considered Braviary to be the flying taxi Pokemon instead of Corviknight, but they couldn't because it's a jerk. Scorpy's sword entry says, after burrowing into the sand, it waits patiently for prey to come near. This Pokemon and Sizzlipede share common descent. This is another really awesome dex entry like with Toxicroak and Seismitoad. It confirms common ancestry and Darwinian evolution in the Pokemon world. That is fascinating, and I love that they're confirming that. Drapions shield entry says it's so vicious that it's called the Sand Demon. Yet when confronted by Hippowdon, Drapion keeps a low profile and will never pick a fight. So Drapion is this big, boisterous, vicious Pokemon, but it's terrified of Hippowdon. Which honestly fair, hippos are terrifying. Litwick's shield entry says, the younger the life this Pokemon absorbs, the brighter and eerier the flame on its head burns. Jesus Christ, I know that Pokemon dex entries have talked about child murder before, but still, this one just hits different to me. It's like this cute little candle just absorbing the life of a child. It makes the flame burn brighter, so it's more motivated to kill children than adults. Like, oh, that's, duh. Malamar's shield entry says, it's said that Malamar's hypnotic powers played a role in certain history-changing events. I think that's really cool, honestly. Like, crazy historical events in the Pokemon world played out differently than they would have because of Malamar hypnotizing and mind controlling people. Like, that's kind of cool. Weavile's sword entry says they attack their quarry in packs. Prey as large as Mamoswine easily fall to the teamwork of a group of Weavile. That is dope. Weavile hunt in packs and take out mammoths? Like, holy crap, that is awesome. Marini's shield entry says, unlike their Alolan counterparts, the Marini of the Galar region have not yet figured out that the branches of Corsola are delicious. Oh, really? Oh, they haven't discovered that? Oh, well, why could that be? Well, maybe that's because all of the Corsola in the Galar region have ghost branches, which probably don't taste like anything. Hippowdon's sword entry says stones can get stuck in the ports on their bodies. Dwebble help dislodge such stones, so Hippowdon look after these Pokemon. I love this. The earlier dex entries about Dwebble talked about them living in Hippowdon ports, but it never said whether Hippowdon was okay with it. This dex entry confirms that Hippowdon and Dwebble have a symbiotic relationship. So Hippowdon's just wandering around the desert with cute little Dwebble living in its ports. That's fun, and I love it. Durant's shield entry says, with their large mandibles, these Pokemon can crunch their way through rock. They work together to protect their eggs from Sandaconda. This is a fun fact because we knew that Heatmore hunted Durant, but we didn't know that Sandaconda also hunts Durant's eggs, so that's interesting. Honedge's sword entry says, Honedge's soul once belonged to a person who was killed a long time ago by the sword that makes up Honedge's body. Okay, hold the F on. We have known for a while that Honedge is a sword that was possessed by some spirit, but it is never said before that specifically the spirit that possesses the sword is the person who was killed by the sword. That is horrifying. The Shield Dex entry for Aegislash-Blade form says that once upon a time, a king with an Aegislash reigned over the land. His Pokemon eventually drained him of life, and his Pokemon fell with him. I need more information about this story. Was the king cruel to the Aegislash and it finally got its revenge? Or did the Aegislash finally decide, no, I want the power, and then just killed its lifelong best friend? Like, I don't know. It's fascinating and terrifying, and just stay away from Aegislash. Clobbopus's shield entry says its tentacles tear off easily, but it isn't alarmed when that happens. It knows they'll grow back. It's about as smart as a 3-year-old. That's just hilarious. It just confirms the intelligence of a Pokemon based on the intelligence of a child. That's just funny. Mantike's sword entry says, Mantike living in Galar seem to be somewhat sluggish. The colder waters of the seas in this region may be the cause. I think that's a fun fact. Mantike and Mantine potentially as well get slower in colder waters. What's interesting to me though is that Mantike also lives in Sinnoh, which is a cold climate as well, but it doesn't say anything about them being slower there too. Type Null's sword entry says, rumor has it that the theft of top secret research notes led to a new instance of this Pokemon being created in the Galar region. That is a really cool story. Of course, we know about Type Null being created by Ether back in the Alola region, but it explains Type Null being here in the Galar region by someone stealing the research from Ether and then traveling to Galar and creating it here. That's really cool. Sliggoo's shield entry says, the lump on its back contains its tiny brain. It thinks only of food and escaping its enemies. So that's a fun little Pokemon anatomy lesson. The brain of a Sliggoo is in its little hump. Dreepy's sword entry says, after being reborn as a ghost Pokemon, Dreepy wanders the areas it used to inhabit when it was alive in prehistoric seas. That is freaking cool. So is Dreepy a fossil Pokemon, but instead of being revived in the typical way, it was revived in some spiritual way and it ended up as a ghost Pokemon instead of a Dragon Rock Pokemon? I don't know. That's so cool. Dragapult's shield entry says, apparently the Dreepy inside Dragapult's horns eagerly look forward to being launched out at Mach speeds. I love that. For a while I was thinking, man, that seems kind of cruel that Dragapult is just firing its children at its enemies, but apparently the Dreepy like it, so that's nice. The Shield Dex entry for Zacian's Hero of Many Battles forms says that this Pokemon has slumbered for many years. Some say it's Zamazenta's elder sister, others say the two Pokemon are rivals. I like this because while legendary Pokemon are technically genderless, this is giving them an associated gender, so Zacian is associated more with the feminine side of things. Although, I don't know whether Zamazenta is also supposed to be feminine, or if it's supposed to be more masculine in their counterparts. I don't know, I just think it's interesting. Now for some interesting Pokedex entries for Gigantamax forms. Gigantamax Orbeetle's shield entry says, if it were to utilize every last bit of its power, it could control the minds of every living being in its vicinity. That's terrifying. Stay away from a Gigantamax Orbeetle, or you will be mind controlled, like my goodness. Gigantamax Kingler's shield entry says, the bubbles it spews out are strongly alkaline. Any opponents hit by them will have their bodies quickly melted away. So apparently G-Max Foam Burst just kills things. Oh my god! Gigantamax Machamp's shield entry says, one of these Pokemon once used its immeasurable strength to lift a large ship that was in trouble. It then carried the ship to port. I love this Dex entry because a lot of the Gen 7 Mega Evolution Dex entries talk about how they're violent and vicious and just want to fight, and they're just almost seemingly evil creatures. But with Gigantamax Machamp, it rescued a ship. Just like this giant four-armed buff thing walking through the ocean water, picking up a ship and bringing it back to shore. Like, it's heroic, and I think that's awesome. Gigantamax Gengar's shield entry says, it lays traps hoping to steal the lives of those it catches. If you stand in front of its mouth, you'll hear your loved one's voices calling out to you. That is hella disturbing. Is it the voices of passed on loved ones and they're calling to you from the terrible afterlife? Or are they ones that are currently still alive and it's tricking you into coming closer? I don't know, it's terrifying. Gigantamax Colossal's shield entry says, when Galar was hit by a harsh cold wave, this Pokemon served as a giant heating stove and saved many lives. This is another great one. It's another heroic Gigantamax story, which is awesome. I want to hear more about them and not just how they can destroy things. Gigantamax Meowth's sword entry says, the pattern that has appeared on its giant coin is thought to be the key to unlocking the secrets of the Dynamax phenomenon. If that's true, it's very straightforward because supposedly that pattern is just the Japanese kanji for large. So the secrets of Dynamax Pokemon is just that they get big. And finally, Gigantamax Lapras's sword entry says, over 5,000 people can ride on its shell at once. And it's a very comfortable ride without the slightest shaking or swaying. It may seem like that would be a great business model for them to do some sort of cruise line with Gigantamax Lapras, but it can only stay Gigantamax for 3 turns, and that would be kind of bad if it went back to normal in the middle of the ocean. So there we have it. Those are the Dex entries from Pokemon Sword and Shield that I thought were the most interesting. If I missed any that you think I should have mentioned, let me know them down in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, and an extra special thanks to my patrons over on Patreon who are helping support the channel independent of fluctuating YouTube ad revenue. If you would like to help support me in the same way and get some cool perks like ad-free and early videos or your names here at the end of the video, the link is in the description below. Also, if you want to check out some more of my fun Pokemon content, including a recent video I just posted to my gameplay channel, you can click over here. All right, that's all I have for now. So till next time, big fans, gotta catch them all.